Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me and see the slides.
Yep.
Today, I'm very excited to introduce you to one of our new products, which we launched in November last year, which is ArcGIS Knowledge, which brings you several advanced spatial analytical capabilities to our ArcGIS system. So, when we talk about spatial analysis, the goal of spatial analysis has always been to derive useful information, intelligence, and understanding so that we can make better decisions using our data. And when we talk about spatial analytics, we are mainly focusing on these three. We talk about traditional analysis, where we use spatial algorithms. We talk about data science, where we use several models to identify patterns, trends, and anomalies in your data sets, and advanced analytics like artificial intelligence. So we have several GeoAI tools which helps you solve complex problems using our AI and VR techniques. Now, with ArcGIS Knowledge, we also have an analytical engine that focuses on graph analysis, bringing an entirely new capability to ArcGIS to improve both spatial and non-spatial analysis volumes. So before we move to the course session, I would like to describe few terminologies. First is, what is knowledge graph? So knowledge graph is a database that uses a graph structured data model. It comprises of points and lines. So if you take a look at your right, we have a knowledge graph of a simple supply chain data. So here we have several points, which are entities. So here we have our suppliers, parts, managers, plants that actually purchases these parts. So you must have realized that we have both spatial as well as non-spatial entity in our graph. So suppliers and location of plants definitely must have some spatial component associated with them. Whereas the parts they manufacture and people working in those factories, they are actually non-spatial entities. So knowledge graph is a database model which stores your data, manages your data, helps you analyze your data in the form of a graph. So we call these points as entities, and the line connecting these entities are called relationships. For example, supplier 310 produces part 1. So this relationship is called produces. Supply 310 also has a manager called John. So he has a relationship called as manager. So this data model is so flexible. You can have your own entities and create several relationships that is meaningful to your analysis. So traditionally, we use relational database models. As opposed to those, a graph model is built as a collection of concepts of entities and relationships. So basically, instead of thinking about your data in rows and columns, we are thinking of our data as a web or a network of entities like this. So why do we use knowledge graphs, and do people really use knowledge graphs? So if you are a user of Amazon Prime or Netflix, you must have received new movie recommendation based on your watch history. So let us take a very simple example of Govind and Radha. So both of them use a same platform, but they watched 3 different movies. Govind watched Interstellar and Inception, whereas Radha went and watched Titanic. But because of the commonalities in these 3 movies, they are both suggested or recommended Avatar and Blood Diamond. So you can see what actually led to these recommendations. So Avatar was suggested to Govind because he previously watched a science fiction movie starring whereas Radha was recommended this because she watched movies starring a same actor, and based on this direction, they got Avatar as a recommendation. So you get the understanding, right? So based on several degrees of connectivity, we try to give movie recommendations. The same concepts can be used for several other fields as well. For example, are there any disruptions in my supply chain? Are there any vulnerabilities in my network of assets? All these you can understand using knowledge graph. So since organizations also have multiple data sets, we have data sets in our relational databases, we have georeference data, we also have location-based data, but they are not georeferenced. So we have both spatial, non-spatial, structured, unstructured documents, we have PDFs, Excels. They're all organizations, be it researchers or utility industries, we are all looking for ways to bring many of these data sets together so that we can better understand what is happening, where it's happening, and why it's happening. So this is where a knowledge graph can help. It works in the same way as a human brain. It stores and processes information by connecting it in context to the thing it already knows about. So knowledge graphs are actually stored in a special kind of database. So these databases are optimized to store not only the points or entities, but also they can store the relationship between these data points. So knowledge graph offers us a new way to perform data fusion and facilitate analytics across many kinds of data. And another important reason why we need knowledge graphs and graph analysis is sometimes the relationships between our entities can be so complex that it becomes difficult for us to comprehend when we do it manually, especially in scenarios where we have multiple sources of data coming in with multiple levels of connectivity. For example, we have seen in movies, especially in investigation dramas, where usually the hero who is a chief investigative officer or the inspector who has a board like this when he starts an investigation. He has photographs about the culprits or suspects. He has photographs of the victims, who they met and who those people met. Were there any clues found? Are there any specific news clippings related to that particular case, and what was the time? So traditionally, if it is a small case, you can complete the analysis manually using a board like this. But as the investigation progresses, or as the investigation proceeds more than 1 or 2 years, we end up a board which looks something like this. So just imagine if one inspector leaves the case after 5 years and the next inspector takes over the case, it will take a lot of time for him to understand the commonalities in the data, interconnectivities in the data, all the complex links that the previous inspector actually made. So we tried to bring this manual format digitally. We made it digital using our link charts. If you have used our previous version of Pro, like 2.8 or 2.9, you must have seen this link charts used in several analysis, especially tracing COVID. Those type of examples you must have seen several times. But these link charts were available only on the desktop, as in there was no option to share it with others in a dynamic format. You could always share them as static PNG files or static charts, but we could not share the complete analysis itself to the next person in our team. So this is why we have brought knowledge graph. So now you can create these complex relationships in your graph data store. And this graphs you create within your enterprise system can be shared with everyone else in your organization or respective shareholders and improve collaboration. So this is the main reason why we have ArcGIS Knowledge. So ArcGIS Knowledge, it actually helps you carry out graph analysis in ArcGIS system. So it can help you answer some very important questions like, what are all the components in my supply chain? Do I have any vulnerabilities? What is impacted by a problem? Let us say there is a flood or a cyclone. How is it going to disrupt my network of assets? If there is a food contamination, what was the source of contamination and how is it going to impact my customers? If there is a ransomware, how is the critical infrastructure downstream will get affected? And if I am doing some investigation, I have only 2 or 3 people in my watch list. So how do I find people that or assets that are essential to the case, but they are not on my watch list? How do I find them? How do I find more information about something of interest in the many documents I can access? Example, you might have a large volume of documents where you try to find commonalities. How do you do that? How do I connect different analysis occurring across my organization on the same subject? How can my team use the new connection I created between two entities? So knowledge graphs and graph analytics tools that these provides will help you answer these important questions. So coming back to what is ArcGIS knowledge? So ArcGIS knowledge is a new capability to your server. And once you have ArcGIS knowledge server and graph store, you can connect to this graph store via ArcGIS Pro. So once you have these capabilities enabled, you can create new knowledge graphs in your graph store and carry out spatial, non-spatial analysis in your ArcGIS Pro environment. So the new components we have for a server, ArcGIS data store created especially for this, which is called graph store. And you also need a ArcGIS user type extension license to work with these. So let us take a look at the architecture. So most of our existing users of ArcGIS Enterprise might already be familiar with this architecture. So here is our desktop. So previously we were using ArcMap. Now we are using ArcGIS Pro. We have our GIS server, which helps with hosting all our services. And similar to earlier, we have image server to carry out or create image services, geoanalytics to carry out big data analytics, geo event to do real-time integration. Now in this line of engines, now we have our JS knowledge server. So this enables all the graph analytical capabilities we discussed so far. So the another new component is your graph data store. So whatever new knowledge graphs we create in our ArcGIS Pro, they actually get stored in our graph data store. So user can connect with these knowledge graphs and do these analysis in different interfaces or different user experiences. So one is ArcGIS Pro, and we also have a Python API integration. So pretty soon you will also be able to create such knowledge graphs in your Jupyter notebook environment itself. And you can also create web applications or web samples, web apps which uses these knowledge graphs. So what all can you do with ArcGIS knowledge? The first thing is you can do data management. You can store all your data points as entities. You can create and store the relationships between your entities as relationships. And these two comprise of what we call knowledge graph. You can carry out analytics in two ways. One thing is you can carry out the analytics directly in the graph interface, or you can move to the map interface, or you can connect both of them to see the analytics simultaneously. So to visualize all our results, here also we have 3 options. You can visualize your analysis in the investigation format, in the map format, or a link chart format. So in the demonstrations, we'll be showing you all these, and we will also discuss in detail how to create a knowledge graph, how to load data, etc. So once you have ArcGIS knowledge, organizations can visualize and explore connected data. So you can do this in the form of maps or link charts. You can also explore these connections using queries, free text search, histograms, graph algorithms, etc. So as you must have noticed earlier, it has a very flexible schema. So your data, you can load your external data very easily, and you can add and modify the graph data accordingly. So we will see one example of how we can load data from your CSV file onto your knowledge graph and create some interesting connections. So we will see this in detail. In addition to these spatial and non-spatial entities, you can also reference documents in your analysis. And once all the analysis is done, you can collaborate across enterprise. You can share these knowledge graphs to build on the existing analysis. You can complete one part of the analysis and hand over that analysis to your teammate so that they can take it up from where you left off. So these are some of the examples of what type of data you can use in knowledge graphs. So ArcGIS Knowledge excels at bringing wide range of data. So you can bring data about your supply chains, invoices, shipping manifests, watch lists, CDR data, property ownership records, IT assets, social media posts. So these type of data can be brought into our ArcGIS knowledge environment. Now, let us move on to a demonstration. So today I will try to cover 3 use cases. So in addition to this, we can also use the same methodology for several other use cases also. So in case you don't find this relevant, I suggest that you still watch this session till the end so that you can get an idea about how you can bring your own data into this knowledge graph and carry out analysis that could bring value to your organization. So the first demonstration I will start is with CDR data, how we can load the call data records from a CSV file and create connections. And then we will see how to do investigation in supply chain. So if there is a disruption in a supply chain, how do we investigate them? And finally, we will see one interesting use case of how we can bring the global terrorism database into our GIS system. So let us move to the demonstration now. So here you can see that my portal, I'm connected to my knowledge demo portal. So here you can, so once you have installed ArcGIS Enterprise with Knowledge Server version above 10.9.1, you will have the option to create new investigations in catalog view. So let me just take you quickly to the portal page so that you can take a look at how a knowledge graph actually looks like. So this is my portal, and here you can see some of the knowledge graph that is actually hosted here. And in my server, I also have a knowledge graph data store where our graph gets stored. So let us quickly see how we can create a new knowledge graph. And my objective in this session is to bring this data in from our Excel sheet to ArcGIS knowledge graph. So here we have different information like calling number. So basically these are subscriber numbers. Assume that I am working with a telecom company. So these are my subscribers, and these my subscribers made a call or received a call or sent an SMS, received an SMS from these numbers. So we have information about the date, time, duration, the first cell tower, last cell tower, what type of call it was, incoming, outgoing, etc. IMEI number, IMSI number, and which roaming network it actually belongs to. So let us first create a knowledge graph here. So here in view, you can go to the catalog view and say new investigation. So you can give any name to your knowledge graph. So here I will call it demo CDR. So here my summary is called data records. So I will call it knowledge graph. So here you can see we get two options. Either you can create a new knowledge graph or use an existing knowledge graph. Let us go with the new knowledge graph. Here you can select the location where you want to save, and I would like to share it with my organization. You can specify the coordinate systems of the spatial components in your data and click finish. So this creates a new investigation here. So now we have something called demo underscore CDR. So if you check our portal, we should also have the same knowledge graph created. Yeah. So we have demo underscore CDR. So it all data records of country. You can see how the URL looks like. Okay. Now our knowledge graph is ready. So here you will see two components. One is the entity type, which are the points. So our entities could be subscribers, who they call to, cell phone towers, a roaming network, etc. So we can also create relationships. Example, incoming calls or belongs to this network. These type of relationships we can create. So now what I will do is I have my CSV file ready, sample underscore CDR. I will go to load table. Select sample CDR. Next, we will go to entities. So here we can create entities. So this, let us say this will be my subscribers for number. I also want some spatial data here. So I will add the first cell, or you can call it as first tower. We also want to do some analysis with our roaming. So if you can see that every time I click on it, there is a red tab that happens. So it actually indicates whether my data entry is complete or not. So this is one useful tooltip. So in case your data loading is incomplete, you will get that red bar. So now our entities are ready. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 entities. We have subscribers, call numbers, 2 about the cell towers, and 1 roaming network. Now let us create relationships. So in our cell phone records or CDR data, we have a column called call type, which actually says whether it is incoming, outgoing, SMS incoming or outgoing, etc. So let us create relationship using this. So my origin is my subscriber. I can select a column and select call type. And my destination is call number. You can also create relationships like my subscriber belongs to roaming network. Subscriber has So now we have created the entities and the relationships. Now we can go to properties. So my subscriber has a cell phone with this IMEI number, IMSI number, SMSE. So basically in this property tab, we will be able to add more attributes to our entities. So whatever information you find here, you'll be able to drag and drop. We have cell 1. So I would like to add spatial information here. I have cell 1 latitude and cell 1 longitude. For cell 2 also, we will add these components. Okay. Now next, we need to create spatial components. So we have only two spatial components, our cell towers. So you can mention whether it is a point or a polygon. So here it is a point and I will add the coordinates for that. Cell 1 latitude. So we'll add for the next one as well. Now we can review and run. And I want to create a link chart after this. And whatever, however I load it, that configuration can also be stored, not just let's run. So the time it takes to import the data will depend upon how many rows you have in your CSV input data. So now you can see that we have created a knowledge graph and also added all the entities here. So we have 5 entities, just like how we loaded in the table. We have called number, cell, roaming network. So we have information about 4 roaming networks, Geo, Airtel, BSNL, Vodafone. So these are like fictional data sets to show the capabilities. I just wanted to tell you that. And we also have information about 326 subscribers. So when you click on any subscriber, you will be able to see what is the phone number, IMEI number, IMSI number. Do they have any relationships? So incoming call relationship with another phone number, and it belongs to Geo Punjab. If you want to add any documents, you can add from your system locally. Or in case you want to add any supporting videos or any information from another URL, you can add that as well. So you can, when we loaded the data, we selected display the results in a new link chart. So a new link chart has been created with all the information. So whatever entities and relationships were present here is also available here. So here we can understand our link charts better by giving them proper labels. So what I'll do here is, let us first add our subscribers, and I want to display the subscriber number. So we have our subscribers with phone numbers. Similarly, called number also, I would like to display the called number. Then you can have information about roaming network. So once we have these data, there are few other things you can do. For example, here you can change how your link charts look like for a better understanding of your data. Let me just add everything. Yeah, here you have the options for different layouts. So you can either use a grid layout, or if you want to display them directly on a map, you can use the geographic layout also. So you can also define the root nodes in your data and display those root nodes. Make your chart more root centric. So this actually what it does is, wherever we have the spatial information, it has plotted on the map and shows all the relevant non-spatial information close to them. You can also have fusiform charts. So this is how you create a new knowledge graph and load data onto it. Now let us do some analysis. So here you have an option called centrality. So what the centrality analysis does is it understands all the incoming, outgoing connections between the entities. So you will be able to understand what is the most influential entity in your system. So for example, if I select my subscribers, you can see this particular subscriber has the more connection. So you can call this particular subscriber is adding more value to your telecom company. Or let us say that instead of subscribers, you are interested in saying which roaming network has the most influential or has most connection. So these type of analysis you can do. You can also understand of all the towers, which particular cell phone tower is actually carrying the more load or which is actually taking up more connections. So you can see this one particular cell is having over 292 connections. So this brings out several other analysis also about what is the most important entity, most influential entity. So let us say there is a flood in this area and this particular tower is going to get impacted. Then you can say that around 292 connections will be affected because of this. So these are some of the general analysis you can do. In addition to the centrality analysis, you can also carry out analysis to bring out data from your repository. For example, let us say I'm interested in subscriber 33. I can bring out all the connected documents, spatial and non-spatial entities associated with this particular subscriber. And another thing you can do is, if you want to expand this further, you can select and say expand. So let us say I'm interested in seeing, so I want to know how this particular subscriber is connected to the entire network. You can do just an expand to see he has what kind of relationships with other entities. You can click on anything and the link chart will expand automatically. So here you can see, so this particular subscriber sent SMS to this many people who then had incoming, outgoing, and other relationships with several other phone numbers. So you can keep on expanding your link charts. Let us say I can still expand the chart. So the chart will keep on expanding until there are no more relationships available in this particular chart. So we can also have a different chart format to understand our data better. So you can say this is my origin. So this is the first degree of connectivity, and then we have the next degree. So we can keep on building our charts. So here you also have a tool called Find Paths. So what this Find Path tool does is you can select any two entities in your knowledge graph, and it will tell you what is the shortest path or what is the common connecting point between these two entities. So you can carry out analysis like that as well. So here also we have a centrality analysis, which is the most influential calling number. So whatever information you select, you can connect it directly to the cell tower map to see the selections both in the map and the graph knowledge graph simultaneously. Now we saw how to create a knowledge graph and load data to it. Now I'll show you how you can do some other meaningful investigations. So here I have a supply chain data of some steel industry here. So what we have done is here we have trying to map the global supply chain. So we have information about several manufacturing plants, where they get their materials from, their suppliers, their suppliers. So we have almost 4 levels of information here. And we also have information about how they are linked. So you can see there are these suppliers, manufacturers, and plants are heavily interconnected. Let us see how we can do an analysis in this. So here, whatever supply chain data you saw here, I have created a knowledge graph for the same. So here also from the Excel, we have loaded the data. So there are multiple ways to load the data. You can load from the load table option we saw here, or you can directly use our editing and do it manually, create those entities and relationships manually. Or you can also use FMB data interoperability extension to batch import large volumes of data. Uh, Here, the use case I would like to present here is, so let us say I work in steel manufacturing industry and I receive an information that from supplier 88 that the steel he received has some issue with the quality. So he feels that the steel has been contaminated. It did not pass the QA QC they conducted there. So to investigate this further, I have some questions. So supplier 88 says that there is a contamination. So there is going to be a delay in his manufacturing process. The first question is, I want to understand how this is going to affect the supply downstream of supplier 88. The second question I want to answer is where this contamination originated from. For example, the supplier 88 must have received the raw material somewhere upstream. So what is the source? Third one is that particular source might have supplied to several other places as well, and maybe they are not aware of this contamination so far. So let us select this supplier and add it to our link chart. So in the demo link chart, I have supplier 88. Now let us select this and do a filtered expand. Here I want to know the supplier where he supplies to. So supplier 88 is supplying to supplier 75 and 28. So they are manufacturing these parts. So we have produced information. These parts are then purchased by these people. So you can see that the contamination in our origin or our route, who is supplier 88, is going to affect plant 26, plant 25 and 24. So these manufacturing units in these three plants will get affected because of delay in supplier 88. Now, my first question is answered. So my first question was, how is it going to affect manufacturing downstream? Three plants are going to get affected. Now, my second question is, where did this contamination originate from? So I will select the supplier 8 and see where he received his raw materials from. So supplier 88 received from supplier 226. You can add the supplier directly to the map and see the exact location of the supplier. So this particular contamination in our supply chain data actually originated from this particular supplier. Yeah, it is from Japan. So the contamination actually originated from a supplier in Japan. Now I'm able to see not only where the contamination originated, but also at the end who are all affected. Now I can add all of them directly to the map and see. You can just say in your link chart, you can say add to map. So you will be able to see the exact location of all the plants, suppliers, and the origin as well. So now we have the map of all the affected entities with their location. This you can share with everyone else in your organization for further investigation. Okay. Now we have answered 2 of our questions. The next question we have is our supplier 26. Let us understand about him further. So we can go back to the investigation view and say supplier 226. When I say, I also, the graph query also brings up steel report where you can extract the text automatically. So you just have to select extract test and you can see there is a report on some misconduct and there is investigation still going on. So there was some falsification about the quality of the steel. So basically we have identified the root of a contamination and also we find some supporting document that it could be a source of contamination. Now, my next objective is I want to know what are all the links supplier 226 has in our complete network. So for that, I'm going to take the help of our query. So here I have written an OpenCipher query to understand all these links completely. So when I apply, the graph query will go through all the entities that are connected to 226, all the raw material suppliers as well as manufacturers. And here I have almost 273, more than 273 record, which you can drag and drop in your link chart to understand other plants that we have missed. So in our first in our first query, we identified 3 plants. Plant 24, 25, 26. Now we have come up with several other plants also that might be affected in another part of the world. So you can take a look at the selections here. So here we have identified in total 13 plants where manufacturing activities could get affected because of this. So this is how we try to get answers about some difficult questions using knowledge graph. Even though it is possible to make these connections manually, after certain levels of connections, it becomes difficult to bring all those interconnectivities easily. So this is why we go for knowledge graph. So there are several other information or several other analysis that you can carry out, like in search and filter, you also have histograms to see which part is more important or which plant will get impacted. So here, as we said, 13 plants are getting impacted, for which 67 manufacturing of 67 parts could be affected. You can also see several other relationships that are available here. And supplier 10 will be affected, and which are all the plants numbers that gets affected, and how many employees will are linked to that. So these type of histograms also you can create. So this is how we do an in-depth investigation using knowledge graphs. We can create link charts. You can apply those link charts to our maps, and as well as you can share it with others in your organization. So these are the final affected people, or these manufacturing activities will get disrupted because of this steel contamination, which was reported by our supplier EPA. So the next one use case that I would like to show is of global terrorism database analysis. We are just trying to show you different use cases. In addition to this, we also have several other applications. We have applications available on how to understand the water supply network, how they are connected, how our rivers and tributaries are connected to each other. There are millions of use cases available. And I would also like to hear your suggestions in the chat box below on how you think that this could be useful to your organization. Now let's move on to the last demonstration, which is Global Terrorism Database. So this database has information about the terror activities that are happening worldwide uh, since uh, since the 1970s. So here we have information like event ID. So if you take a look at the event ID, the first four digits represent the year, then month, then the day that event was reported. And the last four digits represent the serial number of that event for that year. For example, 29 implies that this was the 29th terror activity reported in the world in the year of 2013. Okay. We have information about date, country where the activity happened, city name. We also have latitude, longitude, some summary information. For example, if you select this, you have some summary regarding what actually happened, where it happened, and where there any group which claimed responsibility. We also have information about the criticality. For example, was it a planned attack, and where there was civilians where civilians damaged or lost their life because of this. It also has criteria for was it an inhuman activity, etc. You can see information about the attack type, who were the targets, nationalities, weapon type, and actually the source of this data. So this database is actually a collision of several other databases. So they have also said what is the source of this data for them. So let us bring this data to our knowledge graph and do some analysis. Just close this. So here I have created investigation. So here I have called this investigation Global Terrorism Database India, because since I was interested only in the activities that have happened in India, I have taken a subset of this data set. So here I have multiple entities like who are the perpetrators, who was the target, was there a specific target or victim, which city it happened, country, date, source of data, etc. So we also have information about weapon type, was it a suicide attack or not, etc. We also have relationships like has targeted. For example, this perpetrator group targeted this victim, whether nationality of the target and perpetrated by. So I have created several relationships as well. Now let us say that we have received an intelligence saying that there is going to be a hostage attack in Mumbai region. So the clues now we have is it could happen in Mumbai. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see, are there any hostage activities that has happened in the past in Mumbai and who were responsible for it. So we are trying to go through this complete CSV file, but try to bring out some interconnectivities here. So the first thing I will do is I will select Mumbai and do a filtered expand to see how many events, terror events has happened in the past in Mumbai. So I get more than almost 30 events. So you can see the date, year from the event ID itself. The next thing I want to do is I want to choose all the events that represents or contains the text hostage in it. So basically, as we are looking for clues about hostage activities that has happened in the past, I am trying to swift through the summaries of this link chart, anything that mentions hostage. So here we get three selections. So one in 2008, another one here, another one here. Now I can expand it further to understand who were the perpetrators here. When I do a filtered expand, I see that one particular group has perpetrated this, and I can also check, are there any documents to support this? So this is how you can keep on building your charts. Now, let us say you're interested in, um, uh, let us say you want to see where other places this perpetration has happened. You can again do filtered expand here. You can also add the source of data. You can also, so this, like this, you can keep on building your link chart till you get some meaningful information out of it. So this is how you can create link charts, and you can also change the layouts so that you can understand your link charts better. So this is what we wanted to show you today. So one final slide on the licensing. So all the demonstrations you saw today, they were created on ArcGIS Pro 3.0 and Enterprise version 10.9.1. So if you have ArcGIS Enterprise Standard or Advanced, you'll be able to work with Knowledge Server once you get the license, and it is licensed as a user type extension. So after your server installation, you also need this user type extension to start with this workflow. So this is what I prepared for today. Now I will hand over the session for Q&A.
Uh, Thank you, Saranya, for such an insightful presentation and demo. A lot of people has requested for the recording of the webinar. So we will soon be sharing a recording of this webinar with you via the email you have registered with us. Alternatively, you can visit and subscribe to Sri India's YouTube channel as well for the recording of this webinar and all our past webinars and various events. Uh, I can see few of the questions has already been answered by panelists over chat. So I'll take few unanswered one. So we have one question which is, can we use ArcGIS Knowledge Server for land management system also?
Yes, land management system, as in you can try to create connections if you have the information. For example, in 1990, who was the owner of the land? How was it split? Who are the owners after that? How was it split? Who were the owners? So these type of interconnectivities you can create. I'm not sure if this is what you meant by land management. You can mention in the chat box.
We have actually questions, related to ArcGIS Pro as well. Can we use ArcGIS Knowledge Server? Uh, just a minute. Yeah. Knowledge Graph is a kind of tool in ArcMap Pro. Is it available on any versions of ArcMap Pro? And questions like, we already have ArcGIS Pro. Can we use Knowledge Server?
Okay, so this functionality is not available in ArcMap. It is available in ArcGIS Pro from 2.9 and above. So if you have ArcGIS Pro 2.9 or ArcGIS Pro 3.0, you will have these functionalities when you also have ArcGIS server deployed with ArcGIS knowledge license. But you will be able to explore the link charts in this anyway, but you require the server ArcGIS knowledge server to explore this in ArcGIS Pro.
Just to add what Saranya has mentioned, the base requirement for starting the knowledge graphs is you need to have an ArcGIS enterprise with knowledge server extensions deployed on your there, and you need to have a creator user with a knowledge server capability enabled on it. Then ArcGIS Pro becomes one of the interface to work with all your knowledge graphs work. So that's one of the free.
Right. Thank you, Krishna. We have the question is next question is, can we create two different graphs and do comparison here?
Two different graphs. What you can do is, like, when we are creating the second graph, you saw there was an option to create a graph in the existing knowledge graph itself. You can do that. Or how I showed today, you can select the entities you are interested in. Let us say scenario A, scenario B. You can create two different link charts and carry out the analysis. The graph can be a single graph, and the analytical viewpoints or the vantage point from how you're looking at your graph, you can have multiple link charts for that. You can select entities only you're interested in, only add them to one link chart, and in the second link chart you can add the next set of entities. Then you will be able to compare them visually.
Okay. The next is it possible to get location tar history of a subscriber for a particular time period?
I think those data will be confidential and available only with the telecom industry. So I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Just a minute. So can we carry out forecasting?
So forecasting, we have several other set of tools. Like we have a toolbox called space-time mining tools, where you can carry out forecasts as well. So it has more than 3-4 algorithms available, and we also have a tool which will run through all the algorithms available and give you which is the best model you should use for best forecasting model you should use for your area of interest. I would suggest for forecasting, you should look for space-time pattern mining tools.
Right. So in the interest of time, I'll take the last question. Participant, if you still have any questions or your question has not been taken up here, please write to us at info@esri.in and we will respond back to you. So the last question we'll take here is just a minute. Yeah, okay. Can we publish this data on ArcGIS server? If so, what will be its format?
Whatever we saw today, they are actually coming from our server only. So the data is not created in Pro, as in I'm just using Pro as an interface. All the data is residing in knowledge server, and you have a graph data store that you will get with this installation. So all the graphs we create are getting stored in that graph data store, and you're able to see it. So as Krishna sir mentioned, this base deployment with ArcGIS server, knowledge server is essential for these workflows.
Just to add here, if you want, your question is about how to share. So once you are getting the graphs created and generated, you need to share with some set of people. What you can do is in ArcGIS Enterprise, you can create a group for people and you can share only the output graph to those respective groups. So they can visualize those graphs on the web application for their work.
Right. Thank you, Saranya, for the presentation, and thank you, Krishna, for your inputs.